And now, it's that time of the week once again. Welcome to the Departure Lounge podcast with your hosts, Tom Whittle and Steve Wooldridge. Your ticket to the home of aviation podcasts. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the flight.
Good evening, boys and girls. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are watching in the world. Welcome to episode number 67 of the Departure Lounge podcast here on the Departure Lounge YouTube channel and, of course, on Facebook as well tonight, as well as on Visions Aviation. A big welcome to you all. I hope you're all well and had a wonderful weekend. My name is Tom Whittle, and joining me this evening, as always, is a wonderful co-host. I'll get his name up in a second. There he is, Steve Wooldridge. Steve, a very good evening to you. How are you on this Sunday evening?
Yeah, evening, Tom, even everyone at home and the new people watching. Appreciate you're all good. Yeah, it's been a decent weekend. What about yourself?
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad at all. Met up with Marco, of course, for the first time. And we went to Yeovilton Fleet Air Arm Museum and purchased myself a Concorde hoodie. So I'm wearing that tonight in support of that. But yeah, no, weekend's been very good. Very good so far. It's gone very quick as well, I think, as well. So yeah, not too bad.
Yeah, we always do.
Yes, have you been up to much?
Again, after last week, we've been Arrows again this weekend. They arrived yesterday. I've got some came in again today, and I've heard them leave about 20 minutes ago. So yeah, it's all the Reds come down. It's good to meet up with a couple of mates down there and photos and that. And yeah, looking forward to the display season at this point now and get to see them strutting their stuff at Bournemouth and that.
Not long until I attend Fairford, and of course you do as well. So getting to that point now where it's going to get exciting, especially on the countdown to that. But we'll bring you back shortly, Steve. Also joining us this evening, as always, is, of course, I nearly read his name out that he's got on the screen there. It's Ian.
No, don't be doing that. You told me all right.
It's Ian Hartley. Yes, not too bad, thank you. How are you?
Good. I'm really, really good. Yeah, excited for tonight.
Yes, very much so. I've been looking forward to this since we announced it last week. Here we are. So, yeah, very much looking forward to this. How's your weekend been?
Yeah, it's been all right. I went to Liverpool yesterday. Took my daughter shopping. Never again. Yeah.
She'll probably put in the comments why, but
no, that's about been the highlight / low light really of the weekend. Going to Liverpool shopping, it was an experience. It was
awesome.
It's
lovely.
When you live in a tiny village like Preston and you end up in Liverpool, it's quite a daunting prospect. And of course, with the trains were on strike as well. So
yeah, of course.
Yeah, we had to get a bus, and the buses were absolutely rammed solid. So it was good. It was an enjoyable day out. So that's pretty much all I've done this weekend.
Lovely, fantastic. Right, we'll bring you back shortly. So, time to bring on the guest or introduce our guest for this evening. Of course, we are humbled and delighted and privileged to welcome the man himself. It is, of course, NOEL Phillips.
Hello.
Good evening, Noel. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, very well, thank you. Very well. Like, very excited to have you on the show to talk to you. A lot of people, including myself, and people in the comments, obviously big followers of you and your travels and stuff, which of course I think they're looking forward to hearing about a little bit more in detail. So thank you for coming on tonight.
No, you're very welcome. Thanks for having me on. Actually, it's nice to be here. Yeah.
Pleasure. Question we ask, or we start asking most of our guests. I already know, but we'll let know for everybody. What are you drinking tonight?
I am drinking a cider tonight. It's not a very good cider, admittedly, and it's mostly gone. And my daughter was supposed to be bringing me one out, so so at the moment I'm running a bit low. So we'll see. But yeah, it's just a kind of strongbow tonight with a bit of ice.
Strongbow.
It's a nice summer's evening. So yeah.
Yeah, I can't say the same here, unfortunately. It's cloudy and been raining most of the evening, so
oh no,
not quite nice. Wonderful. Right, let's bring everybody back so we can all say hello. Right, say hello, everybody.
Hello, everybody.
Yeah, how are we doing? All
Not
right.
literally. Everyone good?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think we're all
Everyone's
good.
just gonna ignore Steve again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good start, everyone. Good start.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into some housekeeping before we go into tonight's show. So we are on social media. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter if you wish to keep up to date with everything that's happening on the show. Trust me, you're going to want to do that. You can follow us on there. We also have a shop, of which I don't think any of us are wearing the merch tonight, but I've got a reason to. You guys don't. But you can find the link to the shop in the description below, where you can buy t-shirts, mugs, cups, hats, anything you like to support the channel. You can find that in the description below. If you want to be a guest on the show, you can by simply messaging us on any of the social medias, and we'll get you on the show as soon as we can. And lastly, we are also on a Facebook group called the Departure Lounge Community Channel, where the community that is involved share photos, videos, and to talk about experiences they've had plane spotting. So if you want to join a wonderful little community, you can find that on Facebook as well. So let's have a little run through of who's in the chat so we can say our hellos. Ian, are you capable of doing this week?
I am. I'm just going to scroll back down to the bottom. I'll put my bins on. So I'll start right from the bottom here. So we'll start off by saying good evening to you three, first of all. And Gail, I think, I'm not sure whether Sam's with us just yet, but Gail's moderating for us. So hi to Gail. We've got Laura Baker, Alison Bowers, good evening. Michael Payne to Max Jet Live TV Live, Ryan Bomber, Sarah Pass, Samuel Wright, Visions International, Mark Jones, Tom Hardy, Wadders, Welshie Kev, Sarah Pass, blah, 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 again, let's keep going. Alison Bowers, Airliners Live are with us as well. So good evening to everybody.
Good
there.
evening to you guys.
Linky Bull, just trying to find some other names I haven't mentioned just yet. Loop is with us, and and Rob Brown plane spotting, of course. So good evening to you as well, Rob. The Flying Architect and Bradley Penny Aviation, Michael Painter. I hope I've not missed anybody out there, but there's absolutely loads of names.
Well, yeah, that's fine. Yeah. That's fine. Like, if everybody, if we are missing your comments, we will read them out at some point tonight as well. Do keep getting them in. And of course, if you have any questions for Noel, we've asked him. He's open for any question within reason. Do get them into the chat. Get them into the chat, and we'll get them asked as the evening goes on.
Just be kind.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just quickly browsing through all these comments now, and I don't think you've anything to fear. No, there's a lot of love in these comments here. A quick hello to T and Hartley as well. My daughter, she's saying hello to everyone as well. So, yep, Geraldine Babb is another one. Good afternoon, good evening, and so everyone's present and correct. Tom.
Perfect. Right, let's get into it. We've done a small introduction. We always get people to do this, even though a lot of people know who you are. But no, for those that may not know who you are, we'd like to give a little introduction to yourself.
Yeah, well, basically, I make a few plane videos and people watch them. And I basically fly around the world, and I head to some random places and try and fly on all the little local airlines, and just to try and experience aviation and try and kind of go out of the ordinary and see how people use these amazing machines to travel around in some of the most like random places that you probably wouldn't even think of. And it's amazing fun. I've just got back from Africa, and I was in India a few months ago as well, flying on loads of little airlines, which I'm sure we'll talk about tonight as well. But yeah, it's just things like that really. And I kind of make my videos and I stick them on YouTube, and for some reason people kind of enjoy watching them. So it's yeah, never understood it myself, but yeah.
No, that's fine. Obviously, difference I think for you amongst most travelers, a lot of people tend to kind of go with the bigger known airlines. Don't need to list them or anything else. I mean, we know what a big airline is, but you tend to kind of focus on the lesser known. Like I know there's a few videos that you've put on recently that you've said you've flown with this airline, and I'm like, I've never heard of them, so it makes me want to watch it. Was that kind of like the goal, to kind of like just bring to attention sort of the lesser known airlines and what they're like to fly with?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, I've always had this fascination with airlines. I mean, when about 20 odd years ago, I used to go plane spotting down at Birmingham Airport. And it was when I first kind of started getting into aviation, I suppose, on a kind of a major level. And yeah, I used to go to Birmingham and I'd see airlines like Turkmenistan Airlines flying in, or Uzbekistan Airways. And you're just like, I've never heard of these countries, but wonder what it's like to actually fly on these airlines. And for so long, they've just literally been a name at the airport that you see flying in and out, you know. And fortunately, since I've been able to take this to be my full-time job now, somehow it's allowed me to to actually say, right, let's go to Uzbekistan, let's go and do something really random, let's go and fly on Uzbekistan Airways and see what they're like. And it's a fascination for me, really, to see what it's like to fly on these airlines for a main part, but also people really enjoy seeing the kind of out of the ordinary experiences and countries that they've never heard of before, and seeing what it's like flying into some little Central African country somewhere. And I guess as well, the thing for me is it's not just about the actual flight; it's about the whole experience around that. And some of the experiences you have in these places, in the airports, dealing with the staff, or just the whole way things operate in these parts of the world, it's just fascinating for me to watch. And hopefully people enjoy seeing it in the videos as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Would you say that your sort of love of aviation came from sort of spotting when you were younger then? Is this how it all sort of started for you?
Well, pretty much. My love of aviation came when I was about 11 years old, and the school I went to, we did a exchange visit with a school in Moscow, and it was right after the fall of the Soviet Union. It was in 1992, so I was 11. I'd never been on a plane before, and they said, "Oh, we want volunteers to go to Russia." I wasn't interested in actually going to Russia. I just wanted to fly on a plane, right? And I begged my parents, and they saved up the money to be able to send me on this trip. And I got on my first plane over to Moscow, brand new BA 767. It was only about a month old at the time, I think. So it was like that new plane smell and everything. And I got up to the flight deck, as you could in those days, and had a look around, and the pilots were so nice. And then we landed in Moscow, and I just remember seeing this variety of planes. I didn't know what they were. I was 11 years old. But like with funny writing down the sides, all the Aeroflots like Tupolevs and things, and all the CCCP registrations on them and stuff, and it just felt so exotic. And what was outside the airport didn't seem to bother me as much. But when you saw all these bits of metal sitting there with weird writing on them and looking all kinds of different planes, and it just sort of triggered something that kind of got me into aviation, really, and I was hooked on it from then on, really.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then obviously the progression into what you've become now. How did that all start? Obviously, it was a slow journey to sort of building up to what you've sort of become at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I started off. That got me into planes basically when I was 11, and I never went on another plane again for about 7 or 8 years, because we just couldn't afford it. I was just a kid at a school. Lived on a council estate in Leicester. We didn't have much money or anything like that, and it was all. Our family couldn't afford things like that, like going on foreign holidays and stuff. So my love of aviation basically came from buying aeroplane magazines and books and reading them, because it's kind of all you could do in the 90s. There wasn't the internet to go online and watch about them and stuff like that. And then I kind of about 2000, I found myself in a job actually working for an aviation company. And my job was brilliant for a plane spotter, because my job was basically ringing up different airlines and finding out what planes they got in the fleet, and how old they were and how many hours they got and stuff like that. And that effectively put me in the company of a whole load of plane spotters, which just pushed my love of aviation like to space, basically.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that kind of got me into the exotic stuff, I suppose, a little bit more. But also, it allowed me to start taking trips. They'd go to like Amsterdam spotting for the day, or we'd fly over to Paris and do some spotting at the Gulf for the day. And that got me into doing these little trips on planes and sort of like just logging every detail about them, taking all the pictures and writing notes about what it was like on the flight and stuff. And I guess that really sort of put me into the realm of what you'd call today a travel blogger. But back then it was just me writing about the flights I was taking and hoping to have some sort of memory of what I'd done. And yeah, that kind of carried on for a bit. I wrote on Airliners Net for a bit, and there's a trip reports forum on there, or there used to be. And I used to write little trip reports about the flights that I did take. And eventually this thing called YouTube came along, and it's kind of all escalated from there, really.
Have you ever considered going back to when you were saying that you were writing notes and jotting down everything about these trips you've been on? Have you kept the notes first of all, and would you consider ever writing them up and making them into a little book?
Oh, absolutely. I've got everything written down. It's somewhere on my computer.
Right.
Because I've saved it all off over the years. So I've got copies of everything. I think the first one really that I did, it was like Air 2000 or something like that. I flew on, actually no, it was Buzz Airways. Do you remember Buzz Airways? With the BAE 146s, they became Ryanair in the end. They were part of Ryanair, but
right.
they used to operate the little Avros and the 146s out of Stansted. And that was who we flew on to Paris. And I wrote a trip report about that, for instance. Like, and you're looking at me now like I don't remember them. I think a lot of people are the same. But all these little airlines I used to write notes about, and I've still got my little notes about it somewhere. But yeah, people have said to me about writing a book, and I've kind of put some notes together as if I want to do that, but I kind of also feel it's a bit big-headed of me to want to write a book. It's like
it's not really, is it? I suppose it's doing what you're doing now is sort of what you do, and sort of progress your career on that little bit extra, couldn't you? And
I think so. Yeah, I think I will get round to it. And I've started to put some bits together, and maybe at some point we'll put it together and stick it on Amazon or something. And interesting to share, because there's so much that happens, you see, outside of the realms of the videos. Like I'll make a video about a flight, and that video pretty much stops when I get to my hotel, and then my next video will start a few days later. So what happens in between then? There's so much stuff that I could write about, I think, that never gets in any of the videos.
Yeah, definitely.
And then obviously the trains and the buses as well. Was that always sort of a plan, or was you sort of fallen into that as well as the aircraft?
I've sort of fallen into it to a degree. So the trains, I was never really into trains, to be honest. I enjoyed watching them. I used to live next to a railway line, so we had them going past constantly anyway. So I suppose it sort of desensitized me a little bit towards the trains. But I sort of realized that there's certain experiences that I wanted to try over the years, like the sleeper trains. I find that fascinating, that you get on a train and then you wake up somewhere like hundreds of miles away and in a completely different environment. And that, I thought I'll try doing that, and we'll try it with the Caledonian Sleeper because it was a nice, easy one just to throw in there. Well, I hadn't got much content at the beginning, and I did that, and people loved it. So I was like, oh, okay, these seem to go down quite well. And I suppose that's kind of spurred it on to becoming more about all sorts of forms of transport, predominantly the planes, because the planes is where my heart is. But there's going to be times of time where I'll say, oh, let's try taking a train, or let's try this sleeper bus in India or whatever. And it seemed like a good idea at the time, and then end up being like horrible. But
that sleeper bus in India, even watching at home, I started feeling travel sick. The amount it was like rocking and bouncing around, I didn't envy you on that in the slightest.
Oh, it was awful. It was horrendous. I sort of got it in my head based on the pictures on their website of a really nicely made up bed and everything, and like fancy curtains and a TV and everything. I was like, it's going to be like a rock band when they go on a tour bus, and they're all sort of like chilling out and hanging out. And it's nothing like that.
No, it was a shame. Just on the buses, I know we're predominantly speaking aviation, but are you going to revisit the Greyhound bus across America, because it was cut short, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. Sadly, the weather had other plans. I really do want to do it. I think what I'll do this time is try going the opposite direction, so from New York across to LA. That's my plan. I don't know when I'll do that. Potentially, I don't know, maybe probably next spring or summer now it'll be, because we're sort of full until the end of this year now. But yeah, the plan is to do it and actually go back and do it properly, and then stay on it for the full 4 days, I think. So yeah, we'll see how that goes.
I think you need to watch that video back yourself, Noel, before you did it, because I remember watching that and looking at your reaction and your face in some of them stations you went into. And
Yeah, and apparently they were the nice ones as well.
experience.
People have said, "Oh, you had it easy. That's the nice bit of the trip. Wait till you get to the northeast." I was like, "Okay."
Oh, yeah. Well, the passengers like beating each other up and having proper arguments and all that kind of business as well to contend with.
On one bus, I mean, that was the funniest thing. Just like on the few days that I was on that bus, that's what happened. Like, so what happens? What else happens on that bus that you don't see?
Mental.
Yeah, incredible.
Would you compare them to our mega buses? Are they that bad?
I have to say, I've never been on a megabus.
Oh, you know, all right, fair
It's,
enough then. Well, there's an experience for you. Yeah, that'll make a good video.
Yeah, yeah, I could do something here, couldn't I? Like Land's End to John O'Groats on a megabus or something.
Oh, no. I did Preston to London and I refused to get it back and got train. Yeah,
Well, any potential sponsorships are now down the toilet. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that. We'll take a quick pause. We've got quite a few questions coming in here, so we'll flip in and out of what we want to sort of chat about, and we'll also sort of ask the questions that the wonderful people have asked us. Right, there's a couple of questions that came in before we went live, so I'll ask those to you. Providing I still have those, yes, I do. A question from a guy called Belgius, who says, you encounter various standards / customs. Have you ever experienced serious personal safety issues? Unlike Michael Palin, you do not have an entire film crew with you for support.
I think I tend to try and play it pretty safe, while I'm away. And if we're talking things about being in like dodgy areas and stuff like that, and I think the most I've really pushed it was on this last trip I did, which you've not seen yet, but I went to a place called Burkina Faso, which I wanted to go because it got like the coolest capital city name in the world, Ouagadougou. I was like, I've got to go to Ouagadougou. And it sounds like the most amazing place. And then you realize that actually they're under some sort of military coup and there's like all sorts of issues there. And it's like everybody's saying, do not visit this place. And that, I suppose, is the most risky one that I've done. But even then, like, I sort of got there and was like, okay, I'll grab a taxi. And there was a taxi waiting outside the airport. So I just jumped in a taxi and went to my hotel. And it was all like relatively, like nowhere near as bad as what I sort of built up in my head that it was going to be like. It was just like a normal African city. If you just excuse the guys walking around the streets with guns and stuff, it was it was kind of quite normal. And the people were lovely and I had some nice food. And the next day I jumped on a plane and got out of there. And I suppose only afterwards I was sort of feeling a bit of relief that I'd actually got out okay. But I suppose the more you do that, the more you sort of become desensitized, and you're like, this. It might have been dodgy, but for me, like, it was fine. And you just have to go in with that mindset of it's going to be all right. We'll just play it safe, and you just sort of watch your back. Don't talk to people, which I'm very good at because I'm a bit antisocial like that. So if people start talking at me, I just ignore them and carry on anyway. And and it all kind of works out. You just got to be a bit sensible, really, I think.
Yeah.
And also, I'm like a 6'4" bald guy, and people tend to even, for some reason, they look at me and go, "I'm not going to go anywhere near him." And yeah, as its benefits.
Top tip for anybody that wants to become a not a massive fan of people is to kind of just go become 6'4" and shave your hair off.
That's it. There you go. People yeah. And start talking to yourself with a camera as well. That always works wonders.
Yeah. Fantastic. Paul Hussey on Facebook is asking, did Noel ever get to fly on Concorde?
I did not, and I hate myself for it. And the reason that I hate myself so much is that Concorde is retired literally just about as I was starting to get into doing this as a more kind of regular thing. They retired it in 2003, I want to say, in October of 2003. And I was literally at the point where I was about to start flying and making more trip reports and more videos and things like that. Obviously, at the time, there was no way on earth I could have afforded to fly on Concorde. The crazy thing is now that if Concorde had been retired like today, then I may be in a position where I could be able to do that and do it through YouTube and everything. And I just hate myself that I never got to do it.
Yeah, just on that, do you think United will will roll out the boom. You might get a chance to go on that potentially.
It would be nice. I don't know whether I'd necessarily want to set foot on a plane called Boom, but it just seem a little bit short-sighted there. No, I would absolutely. If that became available, I don't know whether it will go anywhere. They've had these ideas a few times, haven't they, over the years, and never really gone anywhere. But I think it does look like it might be more likely to go ahead than some of the others. Schemes that they've had, and absolutely I will be on that. I'll let everybody else do it first, as I usually do, and then at some point I'll just drop in a flight on it probably.
That's it. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, it's a massive shame. I'd like to have flown on Concorde myself, but I was too young then, and yeah, it's a shame.
Yeah.
Massive shame. Visions International is asking, Noel, big question. Did you find a KFC after the Indian rail trip?
I'm trying to think. Did I find? I didn't think I actually had a KFC in India. The whole time I was in India, I didn't have a KFC this time. I was gutted. So yeah, I didn't, sadly, and that might be why I was so grumpy throughout the whole trip. Yeah, I did when I got home. I remember we stopped off at one on the way back from the airport, so that was. And I found one in Africa as well on this last trip, which was even better. And the funniest thing is, we landed into Harare in Zimbabwe, and the customs counters were all advertising KFC. It's all sponsored by KFC, and I was like, "I'm home."
Brilliant. Dave Chambers on Facebook asking, "What is the best place you have visited?"
Oh, I absolutely love Nepal. It's probably the favorite country that I've been to so far. It's absolutely stunning from like the second you arrive to the second you leave. It's just nothing but magnificent vistas. And the aviation scene there is just absolutely incredible. There is so much fun stuff. There's like old Chinese planes, and you can like fly into Lukla. Take helicopters up through the valleys up towards Everest Base Camp and stuff. There's just so much exciting stuff to do there. And the people in Nepal, I have to say, are some of the nicest people I've met anywhere in the world. Just absolutely, everybody you meet was just absolutely lovely and just bending over backwards to help you. And yeah, absolutely incredible country.
How was flying into Lukla in real life? Because we've all attempted it on flight sims and sort of varying degrees of success.
It was fun. It was really good fun, and I suppose that sort of helps you because you've sort of seen it so many times, so you know what it's like in your head. But yeah, the feeling when you kind of come around that mountain and you just see a runway with a sheer cliff behind it is just like nothing else really. Yeah, and even videos don't do justice to what it's like there. My videos I've got, I like my videos, but I don't think that they do it anywhere near as much justice as actually flying there yourself and seeing how big these mountains are. I mean, like, you've seen nothing really. They just pile right up into the sky, and you're just weaving in between them. Incredible. And the takeoff from Lukla is just the best thing, because you kind of go down the hill, obviously, to go down, but there's a lip on the runway just after the aircraft starts rolling. And what you never see from the videos is how much that lip just leaps you out of your seat as you go over it. It's like going over a humpback bridge in a car or something. You're just like, as you go over the hump. And it's incredible, absolutely incredible. And then you go faster and faster, and suddenly there's like no ground underneath you. There's no takeoff as such. It's just there's suddenly no ground there. You know, it's weird.
Oh wow!
Yeah, it's very good fun. Very good fun.
Yeah. What other airports are kind of comparable to that you've flown into then?
I don't think really I've been to anywhere quite as exciting as that. Kulu is quite nice in India. That's another one where you weave through the valley, and it's sort of on the edge of a riverbank. So again, you're just weaving through mountains on the approach and coming in. That's a pretty cool one. And that's kind of in America as well. I did where did I fly? Telluride in America. It's up in the Rockies, about an hour's flight from Denver. And that's one where it's another one of these one way in, one way out jobbies. And you sort of come in, but you're sort of weaving around the mountains to come in. And that was in a 328 jet as well, which was pretty fun. So
amazing.
Yeah.
I enjoyed the one where you were in Mexico on the border with America. And for those who don't know, they don't let in the airspace. So it's a sheer bank, isn't it, as you come out of the airport there?
It's incredible. It really is. And you watch them do it before they even get to the end of the runway. They're like banking and turning away. But I think actually they can. And they just, I believe it's something to do with the expense and everything of flying into American airspace, because suddenly it's a lot more complicated. So they're allowed to fly into American airspace, but it's a faff and it's a pain in the backside because they've got to suddenly coordinate with American ATC and pay all their airspace charges and stuff like that. It's much easier for them if they just stay south of the border, as it were.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Wonderful. Couple more questions, and then we'll get back into our
thing.
our chat. Visions International again. They're asking how many days a year are you out and about doing trips?
So I take generally about 4 trips a year, and they're generally about 2 weeks each. So in 2 weeks, I aim to get 12 weeks of content. So 12 days of that 2 weeks, effectively, I'm filming, and that'll give me 3 months. So yeah. So I do 2 weeks every 3 months, effectively. Usually, that's the plan. This year, I'm kind of doing 2 trips within about a month. But once I've done my next trip in July, that'll see me through until the end of this year. So yeah, it's
Awesome.
we're kind of doing it a bit differently this year because we've got a few big things happening in the family and stuff, and it basically means that when I get home at the end of July, that's it. I don't have to go and film again until next year. So I'm actually quite looking forward to that. To be honest, it'll be the first time that's ever happened, but it just means it's crazy for this like couple of months really when I'm just away constantly. But yeah.
Would you say that your traveling experiences now after the pandemic are a lot worse because you hear all these horror stories about what's going on in Manchester and what's happening with TUI, this, that, and the other. So your experiences now, are they a lot worse or as good or as bad as what they were said before the pandemic? Would you say the industry's going?
Yeah, it is tough at the minute. I don't think it's the worst I've ever seen it, because even before the pandemic, there were periods of time where we'd have these issues with staffing and stuff for one reason or another, where airports are having issues and stuff, and we'd have strikes and stuff. I mean, you remember the ash cloud when that happened a few years ago, and that shut everything down. And these sorts of things do happen from time to time. I don't think it's particularly as bad as it's probably as bad as it's been before, but I don't think it's anything particularly bad, and they seem to be getting a little bit better in my experience, but I am trying to avoid like Manchester at the minute, for instance. I'm not touching. I'm doing everything through Birmingham because I sort of know I can get through there relatively quickly most of the time. I'm not taking trains as much as I used to because obviously we've got all the issues with the strikes and the staffing issues and everything. So I'm finding for the ground transport, I'm taking more taxis and things and just driving and getting rates to drop me off and stuff than I used to. There's always ways around it, you know.
But
at the minute, it's more sort of it is chaos, and I think it's frustrating because I think a lot of people sort of were saying all the way through it that look, this is going to happen. And I think a lot of the airlines sort of went, oh, yeah, but we're going to just try and save money and lay everybody off right now. And I think it's kind of come back to bite them on the backside a little bit. For them being quite as proactive as they were beforehand. It's strange, isn't it?
It's, sorry, I was going to say, when you were flying during the pandemic, I know someone I know, Vancouver shortly. How kind of restricting is it wearing a mask for that sort of length of time, and what can you sort of do to relieve that?
It's frustrating. It really is. And the long haul flights, I don't know. I'm not a fan of masks. I never have been. And I don't think anybody is really. You sort of wear them because it's what you have to do and it's doing the right thing and everything. But I think, when you do the longer flights, it gets a little bit tricky. I don't know. It's just, I suppose you just kind of deal with it. I don't really know if there's any solution of dealing with it. You just sort of know that's what you've got to do and kind of get on with it. Really, it's a bit weird.
Well, when you're presenting, I suppose it becomes a little bit more tricky, doesn't it? You've got to speak through the mask, or whatever.
That's it. I mean, I think it was brilliant for me because I use a little lavalier mic and I can just clip that inside my mask up here somewhere and talk, and it actually sounds better than it would do normally. But the problem is though, it picks up all your breathing, and people always say it sounds like you're heavy breathing into the microphone because I've generally just legged it through an airport, sat down, and all you can hear is me go.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the only problem, really. But you sort of learn to live with it, really, I suppose. And you find masks that are more comfortable to wear. That was one of the things I did. I soon realised that the fabric ones that you buy is the fancy 30 quid fabric ones that you pick up. Actually, you're better off with a cheap paper mask because it lets you breathe a bit easier and it's easier, more comfortable to wear and stuff. Picks up the audio better on the camera and things like that. So it's just you just learn different ways of coping with it, I suppose.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like, obviously, like, traveling's what you do.
Mm.
During that spell, how did you manage to sort of get by and because you still made a few trips here and there,
Yeah.
but it was obviously very difficult.
Yeah, I mean, so right at the beginning of COVID, it was I'm not going to lie, it was a bloody scary time for us. I'd just given up my full-time job a year previously. I know it was like the same for everybody, and so I'm not trying to say anybody else's. It wasn't scary for anybody else. Of course it was, but it was scary for us as well because at the beginning of that period, I'd just given up my full-time job. I just literally like a year before, so I'd kind of gone past the period where I could jump back into it, and so we were in that situation, and all of a sudden we're finding out there's so much uncertainty, and I remember somebody commented on one of my videos right at the beginning and said, "Oh, I guess that's pretty much it for you now. Then you're going to have to go and find a real job." And that comment is still in here. I still remember that comment. It's the best comment I ever had because it motivated me so much over the period of the pandemic. And we were not filming for a while. Clearly, we'd got quite a bit of content built up previously, so we released that for quite a while. Then it got to sort of the summer of 2020, and we realised that we are going to have to start doing a little bit of filming now. And effectively, it's just a case of playing within the rules as they were for various countries and for this country, clearly, and doing what we could do within the rules and within the constraints that we were presented with. And it got very innovative. There were times, I mean, like the first big trip I did was to Sweden, and there were flights. I mean, we'd gone Amsterdam, for example, had gone down to 2 flights a week from Heathrow. So connecting through Amsterdam up to Sweden turned into like a 4-day trip just to get to Sweden. It's ridiculous, isn't it? Now you look at it now and you're like, wow. So I ended up getting a ferry. It was one of the first kind of forays out of the aviation world. I did a ferry ride over to the Netherlands, and then I got a flight up to Sweden. I flew around Sweden because they were quite relaxed at the time. And then, yeah, and that was it. And that was sort of the first way around it, really, was go to a country where you can travel around a bit more freely and do things a bit and get on more forms of transport. There's more flights operating and there's more content to be made. That got us through for a month with 4 weeks of content. And then we looked at something else that we could do for a little bit. And as things went on, different countries closed, different countries opened, and we just sort of seemed to find a way to make it work, really. And we took a lot of abuse for it. Obviously, I think a lot of people were a little bit miffed that we were still making content, which was a bit frustrating. We were kind of doing everything we could within the rules and everything like that, and following everything, all the guidelines that were in place. But yeah, still, obviously, there was a lot of bitterness out there, I think, back then. And there were times when we considered jacking the whole thing in, to be completely frank with you. And I'm to be honest, I'm glad we didn't, because I think it's been such a good test for us that, what we can get through this, and we can come through this and continue to make content, keep people entertained every week, and keep making videos that people enjoy watching. And it's just, it's really helped us.
Definitely.
Yeah,
We'll do just one more question from the from the chat, and then we'll head back to sort of more chat. But it's now disappeared off my screen, so I can't actually bring it up onto the screen. But Bradley Penny Aviation asked if you had any plans to fly any holiday airlines, sort of forthcoming.
Holiday airlines, I've done some before. I think the issue that I tend to find is that people don't tend to watch them, which is a bit of, from my point of view, they don't tend to be particularly fascinating. Although I have kind of had some ideas that I might try and do some this year, just to, I don't know, get on a Saturday night Benidorm flight or something like that, just to go and experience it and make a fun video about it. I flew BA Chair before. They were like a Bulgarian holiday company. And I've done Jet2 before as well, albeit many, many years ago. And yeah, they don't tend to do well, really, in terms of people watching the content, which is part of the reason we don't do it. They're a little bit sort of mainstream, but different countries' holiday airlines are always fun to try. So I went to Mexico and I flew on a Mexican holiday airline while I was over there. That was fun. I'm literally the only English person in a group of Mexican tourists on a 737, and that was an interesting experience. And so I suppose I've done a little bit, but like your whole Thompsons and things like that, I do fly them a bit when we go away, but I don't tend to necessarily film them because I'm generally on holiday,
I was going to say, when you go away on like just a normal holiday, are you able to switch off? Do you find yourself on the aircraft kind of sort of rating it in your head or whatever.
You know what? I've done that. I've had this conversation with Rach before, and I'm like, I literally have to put myself in a position where I can't do anything. So I don't take any filming equipment with me. I take an aisle seat. I don't even have the window seat when we go on holiday with us as a family, because I don't. If I'm looking out the window, I'm going to be wanting to take photos and videos and stick it on Instagram and everything, and it's just sort of in my head to do that. So yeah, I will get on a plane and I will load up a book and I'll sit on an aisle and I'll just relax for a 3-hour flight, and I have to sort of force myself to do that, though. That's the thing.
Yeah.
I think an interesting one that I think you've just seen. Well, I've just seen a nice, an interesting comment come in from Loopy, saying, "Noel, can you comment on Ryanair seats?"
Ryanair, yeah. I like Ryanair as an airline. I think they're brilliant. We use them all the time when we're traveling around Europe and stuff and not filming it. The seats themselves, well, it depends on the plane you get. They've got some of the newer seats which are bloody awful and like really thin and not much leg room. But then you get some of the ones that have got the older seats from the older aircraft in the fleet, and they've got like the thicker padding on them and everything, and they're just a lot more comfortable. It depends on the plane you get, really. But unlike many airlines, with Ryanair, I'd always prefer an older plane because it gives you a little bit more comfort than the newer ones.
That's interesting.
I was going to say, doesn't your height just hinder that for pretty much all the airlines what you travel on?
It can do. It can do. A lot of the time, I don't have much of an issue. I flew an airline last week, which was just brutal. I don't know how they got away with it, but it was Scat Airlines in Kazakhstan. Always good to raise a smile. And I flew on them a few years ago, and I went back to Kazakhstan last week to go and fly on them again. And I got stuck in this seat, and that every seat seemed to every row seemed to have a different seat pitch compared to the row before it or after it. And the one I was in, it was absolutely brutal. And I literally took a picture of me with my passport. I was sat with my legs sort of spread wide, like a horrible position, like a 3-hour flight. And I'd literally put my passport between the front of my seat and the back of the seat in front of me, and it just barely fit in. That's how much room there was. How on earth did they get away with it? It's ridiculous. But then I flew on the next flight with them, and I'd got like loads of leg room. It's like, I don't know if they'd just thrown the seats on the plane or something. It was crazy.
Friday afternoon job.
Yeah, exactly. But I don't know. It's usually like British Airlines aren't too bad. There's certain sort of rules in place, I think, in this country and in the States and stuff as to how much legroom you got to have. I think it's like a minimum of 28 inches or something, which is tight but doable. I can do that for a couple of hours. But yeah, when some airlines in different parts of the world don't quite have the same like regulations in place, and yeah, it can get a little bit awkward.
God, yeah. I know. Have you ever got off a plane and some of these like Kazakhstans and places like that, and you've actually got off the plane and you've had to kiss the ground and just thought to yourself, "Thank God that's over with. I'm not doing that again."
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, Scat Airlines being a good example of that, really. It's just that was horrendous. Some of the African airlines very similar as well. I flew on A-Sky down there, and they do like a 14-hour ride on the 737, and they're like a low-cost airline too, which is even more fun. And it's basically a flying bus service. They just hop between different countries all down West Africa. And I thought that'd be great. We'll do that. We'll fly from Burkina Faso down to Johannesburg, literally like the length of Africa, on a 737. And yeah, that was brutal. 14 hours that was. And I was just glad to get into bed at the end of that flight.
I bet you were, yeah.
I was going to ask you about that at some point tonight, because obviously that's obviously not direct, is it? It's more what you described was more of like the equivalent to like a bus service.
It is. So we stopped on our particular flight. We stopped in Lomé in Togo, and then we went down to Brazzaville in Congo, and then the shortest international flight in the world to Kinshasa, which is it's like a 10-minute flight. It's 16 miles from one to the next, in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and then it was another 4-hour run down to Joburg from there. But they do loads of flights like that. A-Sky do all across. Like if you look at Africa and all like the kind of sticky out bit on the left of Africa, they hop between all of those countries. Every flight you take stops in another country somewhere. It's pretty cool, really.
Yeah,
it's a good adventure. It gets you to see some of these really cool countries that you'd never actually probably be able to set foot in. Like Congo, I probably can't visit Congo because I don't know. I think for a start they've got a bit of a war going on or something there at the minute, but also it's kind of like difficult to get in. Whereas on this flight, it's just easy to sort of just hop through and just at least get a glimpse out the window of what it's like there.
Not quite the same though as actually stepping foot, I suppose.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Not quite the same as obviously stepping foot out. Of
No, exactly, not quite the same. No, I'd always rather get off the plane if I can, but I will. I'm probably a bit controversial because I will class a country as being like visited if it's something that's particularly difficult to get to, as if I've at least kind of been and sort of seen it and at least set foot in the country, either in the airport or in rare occasions if I've not got off the plane. But yeah.
Sorry, I was.
My bad.
Yeah, I was going to say, Ian mentioned a minute ago, have you ever kissed the ground when you've got off? You must have had pretty kind of severe weather events where you've landed and thought, oh, that was a rough old trip. Is there any that particularly stick out?
I think, generally I've been quite lucky in that regard. America seems to, Atlanta area in America seems to get some really nasty weather. That's the only one I can think where it's been proper, like bumpy and bouncy, because you fly into Atlanta in the middle of summer, for instance, and your entire approach and landing is in thunderstorms, and there's no getting around that. So yeah, that's kind of as rough as I've had it commercially. Obviously, when I've been flying myself as well, there's been times where I've got into clouds and it's been a little bit bumpier than I've expected, and thought, you know what, I'm not. Let's not do that again.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Have you ever thought about? Oh, sorry, Steve. What were you going to say?
No, after you here, mate. No worries.
All right, yeah. I was going to say, going back to your sort of private piloting, have you not thought of like doing a bit of a dotted tour around Europe or something like that, and spending a few weeks doing that? And
yeah, I'd love to. It's on my plan anyway. When that channel grows a bit bigger, I'd like to start doing a few more bigger trips like that. At the minute, it's still quite small and it's not really paying its way at the minute. But I think at some point it'll get to the point where it's a bit more popular and I've got a bit more of a reason to do that for sure. I'm trying to push that boat out a little bit now. We're getting into summer this year. I'm flying a lot more around England and Scotland and stuff. I've got a plan to fly over to France in a few weeks, actually, with another YouTuber. So that'll be a fun one to do. Yeah, and just more kind of British stuff, really, and just kind of pushing my limits a little bit more in this country. Because I'm very, to start with, I was very nervous. I hadn't flown, and if you know the story, but I'd got my PPL originally in 2002, then didn't fly for like 20 years because I couldn't afford it. And then during COVID, I was like, you know what, let's try this whole flying thing again, and got my license back and started flying again. So it's taken me a while to sort of get back into sort of being a little bit more confident with what I'm doing. And I try to push things a little bit more each time. I find a shorter runway somewhere, or like the other week I flew over the Bristol Channel. I went from Swansea down to Newquay and basically crossed the Bristol Channel, and I was like, oh, I felt quite good for having done that. It's made me realize that I can do things like that and not actually it's all right. So it's just, I'm very cautious and I like to just push it a little bit more each time.
Yeah, I think you need to do that, don't you? That'll build your confidence up, won't it? And obviously you can't go wading into massive things like that, because that's when you start to make mistakes, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've got a flight on Tuesday. I'm supposed to be up in Scotland. It's the second time I've had it planned, and I'm absolutely cacking myself about it. I really am. It's a 2.5 hour flight up to Scotland. I've done 2.5 hours down to Cornwall, no trouble. So, like, what is it to worry about? But I don't know. There's just something about going north and knowing what the weather can be like up there, and stuff. And it's just kind of like, not entirely sure. Is this going to be all right? We're going to get stuck up there. What's going to happen? And it's actually quite nerve-wracking to think about it. And it's the same with this whole thing about flying to France. I've flown distances. I've flown over the Wash countless times, and that's the same width as the English Channel between Dover and Calais. Yeah, that's all right. I can do that, no trouble. Yeah, somehow with it being over the channel, it seems like a bigger hurdle to jump across.
That's right. Yeah, it's just something in your head, isn't it? You need to get through, isn't it?
Totally.
And I wouldn't worry too much about flying up to Scotland. I think a lot of people have that sort of reaction, don't they, about coming up north?
I live up here anyway, so it's like it's going down south for me that the problem is. But yeah.
Would you develop your piloting career sort of further, or are you quite happy just being where you're at now?
See, I've had this discussion quite a bit in my head, and I don't know. I've got my license back. I did my night rating. I did my instrument rating, or restricted instrument rating. So really, where do I go from now? And I've considered going commercial, but then I'm like, if I go commercial, then what does that get me really? It means I can get a job as a pilot, or do I really want to be doing that? I'd like to get my full instrument rating. That would be nice. So I can actually use it overseas and stuff like that. So that would be nice. I'd like to eventually try and get a multi-engine rating as well. That's kind of they're the two big things at the minute. It's just which order I do them in, really. We'll see.
I think it's personal ambition, isn't it? It's what you want to do yourself. I think if you wanted to be a commercial pilot, I think you've got to want to be a commercial pilot. And the fact that you said, do I want to be one, tells you that you don't want to be one.
Yeah, exactly. I would have said yes to that question like a few years ago. But the fact is now I'm doing a job that I love. Yeah. And I can't think doing anything, actually working for somebody as a pilot would, I don't think I'd enjoy that as much as what I do now, I might consider getting my instructor rating, which might give me a reason to go commercial. That's something we've talked about a little bit, because it might be nice to sort of just do something to give something back a little bit, not with any ambitions of getting a career out of it or anything, but just to give something back a little bit. So that's kind of been on. It's one of my things, but I've got so many ideas now. There's so many routes I can go down. It's just picking the right one, really, I think.
Yeah,
and I was also, sorry, Steve, I was just going to ask as well, just something what came up before in the comments, and it's something what's been just sat in my head ever since that. Somebody had asked if you'd ever been approached by like a TV company or anything like that to make your, to make your YouTube channel more of a commercial thing, and, perhaps onto a TV channel. You see a lot of these travel programs, don't you?
Yeah, definitely. And it's people have come to me before and they've used my videos for different reasons. Like ITN used it for a while because they had a thing going on in tube stations where they were playing videos and stuff, and they did stuff like that. That's kind of as most as I've gone down that route, but definitely it's somewhere that I want to start aiming down in the future. I've got to get a little bit more popularity behind me first, but it's getting there. Like the BBC are coming to me and asking me for interviews and stuff, which is more than we've had before. So that's we're sort of going in the right direction.
Absolutely, yeah.
And it's just about kind of building up your contacts and being in the right place at the right time, I think, with that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I think it's quite a slow burner, and I think it's a bit of a niche sort of thing what you're doing as well, isn't it?
It is. I try to make it less of a niche because that's kind of the way that you grow on YouTube. You don't grow on YouTube by making uber specific videos about, about aviation or something. You build it by making it accessible to more people. And I think one of the people often say to me, "Oh, you dumb things down way too much when you sound like you don't know what you're talking about in the videos and things." And it's like, well, actually, I try and talk at a level that people who aren't into aviation can watch the videos and actually get some enjoyment out of them. And that seems to be the formula to actually, it's taking that niche, but also expanding it and then bringing more people in by making it more accessible.
Yeah, I was going to say that because you tend to sort of, your followers tend to be sort of aviation enthusiasts, but the mass market is out there. And there's millions of people who want to watch holiday reviews and reviews on this, that, and the other, isn't there? And it's just getting to those people, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not just about that. I mean, it's about making it entertaining for people, And I look at Airliners Live, for instance, who are in the chat now. They could have gone down the route of let's be uber technical and let's be very technical about everything and just show things and appeal to aviation geeks. But they don't. They make it accessible to everybody by having a bit of a chat about it and talking about, this is interesting because of this. And it brings more people in to watch it than you would ordinarily get by being really technical and really specific,
Yeah. I think also as well, I think including other content as well, like when you watch airliners, sometimes there's a bit of a car show or something going on. There's something going on in the angle what's not related to aviation. And like you said, they do try and make a point of including these into their streams, like you said, to aim for the wider market, to be quite honest, don't they? And they do
absolutely. And you've got to, absolutely.
I'm going to interject. Because Ryan Boma, thank you for the super chat, says, try to make it to Montana, Noel, you'd love it.
Oh, definitely. I've been over that way. I've actually been to Montana, but only on the train, and it wasn't the mountainy bit either. It was like the flat bit, because I always thought that Montana was mountains, given the name, but it turns out that most of Montana is flat, and I was it kind of took me by surprise, really. I went through on the train once on the Empire Builder thing that went across the top of America. And I've only really done Colorado, I suppose. I'm over in that sort of area. Yeah, I definitely need to get about there. I want to go to Billings, actually. It's a cool sounding place and it looks quite nice on pictures. So that's somewhere I want to go to. Yeah. I'm sure there's a little random airline out there that I can jump on that'll be.
If there is, I'm sure you'll find it.
Absolutely, yeah.
Is that what you base your trips on? What the cool names are? I think that's a cool name. I'll do
Yeah,
that
well,
one,
yeah,
mate.
you got to a certain degree, yeah, like Wagadugu. Like,
Yeah.
Wagadugu.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
that's
you just
the
like
number
saying
one
that,
hit,
won't you?
wasn't it? But no, we'll get some couple more questions asked first, then we'll jump into a little bit more, as we said. Before I know Rob Brown Planespotting put a question up, and I want to say I've seen the video of you doing it. Westrade, Papa Westrade. Would you sort of recommend doing that? I believe you might be looking into doing that. So, how was that for you in terms of experiencing that short flight?
So I have done it a few years ago when my channel was very small and I was very terrible at presenting. So if you really want to cringe for 20 minutes, then you can go back and watch that video. But actually, as you mention it, on Tuesday next week, I'm doing it again. And I'm flying up there and doing it again. And it's a very fun flight to do if the weather's good and it actually goes. It's quite a fun flight to do because you literally just, I don't know, it doesn't even feel like a flight because the second you take off, you're on approach to the next airfield. It's so random, but yeah, it's good fun. It's nice flying out there. The thing I love about these sorts of flights is you get to meet some incredible people in these little communities. And I remember us landing when last time I went, we landed onto Papa Westray, and the pilot was talking to the fire engine driver, who's also the air traffic controller and also deals with the passengers and everything else. He's like one guy, suits all really. And he's like, "Oh yeah, have you heard that so and so back in Kirkwall, she's pregnant and she's going to be having another baby soon? All right, well, send on my love." And it's like, hang on a minute, like, how many airlines would you get to an outstation and then like talk to them about somebody? Yeah, it's very much like that, and I just love it, and I just love the fact that you, like I say, you've got one guy that does everything. Like there's like one, and he probably does a different job in the day. He's probably like a fisherman or something, and then he'll go and he'll be a fireman and he'll do the air traffic control and he'll like load the passengers on and off and get the bags on and off, and then he goes home and carries on with what he was doing. It's brilliant.
Yeah, amazing. I
Right,
was gonna say, sorry, your the highlights of all your videos is obviously the Lou review. So putting you on the spot, what's the best and worst?
Well, I can certainly give you the best. I can probably give you the worst actually as well. So yeah, the best one, of course, Emirates A380 first class. That was amazing. Showers and everything. There's a TV in there, and the toilet is cushioned as well, so you can sit on the bog and watch the TV, and it's amazing. Really good, like on an airplane. Just what you want to do, isn't it? And there's showers and stuff on there as well. It's just it's like a spa in the sky. It's incredible. So yeah, Emirates A380 first class is my best, and yeah, I'd have to say like the sleeper train in India was kind of a low point, really, and especially given I was on that thing for like 2 days. It's not pleasant. So yeah, you just don't tend to eat much.
I mean, when you sat on this sleeper train, in India, going through these remote whatever you want, do you not just sit there and just go back to your time when you was in this, sat on this cushioned toilet on this Emirates 380 and think, what on earth am I doing?
Why am I doing this? Yeah, there is times, and I have to be honest. I have to be really honest. The amount of times I'm on trips like that. I mean, India was, as trips go for me, it was a tough one, and I think you can tell from the videos I had a really crap time in India, and that there's no reflection necessarily on India. It's just the fact that I was ill during my trip as well, which wasn't great. I wasn't having a great time in general. I was missing home and everything. And then you're sitting on a really terrible train or on a really bad flight or something like that, like SpiceJet. That was the worst one for me in India, really. You're on a flight and you've got to stop, and you're changing planes at this airport where there's no facilities, so you're just sitting outside in the Indian sun, like waiting for the next plane, like at a bus stop, And there's times like that, and I'm just sitting there thinking, I can't be doing with this anymore. I'm too old to be doing this. But then, like, and I sit there thinking, well, this video is going to be terrible. Like SpiceJet, I thought this video is going to be awful because it's just not working. I'm not feeling it. I feel like crap. You can tell it's crap from my video that I'm doing. But actually, then when you get home a few weeks later, you sort of look back on it and smile and think, actually, that's really bloody funny, and I had a really good time doing that. It's the weirdest thing.
But you find out they're the ones that they get the most viewers as well.
I think so sometimes, because people like to see you suffer, It's weird. And it's just the nature of YouTube, really. If I make a video called India's Best Airline, nobody will watch it. Whereas if I'm making a video called India's Worst Airline, everybody will watch it. It's just the nature, it's human nature. They go for negativity. And I try not to put too much negativity into my videos. I don't want to make it too clickbaity or anything, but although some people will say that I do. But if you say something is good, people just don't want to watch it. And if you have a good experience on an airline, then people generally aren't going to watch the video, because why do they want to watch somebody enjoying themselves? They want to feel good about themselves, and therefore that means watching other people having a crap time.
That's what it is. I mean, that goes right back to the days of Jeremy Beadle, doesn't it? You didn't watch it because it was good, because it all went wrong, didn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
That's why you watch stuff like
you
that.
watch other people suffer, and it makes you feel better, and that's fine. And that's kind of where I'm at. So it's good.
Yeah.
It's good. But I try to balance it out. I try to balance it out and have the good ones as well. And India, I did have some amazing trips in India. I flew on Star Air, who were really good, and they sort of went all out to give me a great flight with them. I did Vistara, which was amazing, things like that. So had some amazing times as well. Generally though, but people don't see the nice ones because people don't watch them, so they don't get pushed to them. So I just get told, you're just showing the negative side of India. It's like, actually, I've done 3 really positive, glowing videos, but the fact is that nobody's seen them because they're positive videos.
Yeah. Do you ever get approached by tour operators or airlines or anything like that?
Yeah, I do. I do from time to time. We don't take them though. I think in the last couple of months we've had 3 airlines actually reach out to us and want us to make videos. One of them we did make a video, but we paid for ourselves. Because I just don't want to get into that trap. I've done it before, right? I had an airline approach me a few years ago before COVID and said, will you fly on our brand new plane and we'll send you on an all expenses paid trip somewhere and you can fly on our plane and review it. I was like, brilliant. And I did it. And it were a bit rubbish. And there were certain things that I was just like, if I was making this video myself, I would be slating this airline for this. But you sort of feel in your head, even though they said give an honest review, you sort of sit there thinking, well, I can't really give an honest review.
You can't give an honest review, no.
Because I've got to give it to you for approval. And if you don't approve it, then I don't get a video out of it. And it sort of puts you in that really weird situation where you've got to try and be positive, or at least, there was a point where I said to them, I actually had to approach the airline and said, I didn't agree with this. How do you want me to approach this bit in the video? Because this is clearly a negative thing compared to other airlines. It's a negative thing compared to other airlines. How do I approach this subject? And it's awful. And I said after I did that video, I would never work with an airline to give me a free flight in exchange for a good review, because it's not worth it. And it ruins your credibility for a start as well, because people just see you being paid off to make videos, and it just puts you in such an awkward situation. So we do get offered them, and we always turn them down, or if we do them, we end up paying for them ourselves anyway, because at least that way we can say, in all honesty, I've paid for that myself, and if it were crap, I can say it's crap.
Could you pass them on to us?
What a free flight.
I'm always up for a freebie.
You know what they say, you don't ask, don't get.
Absolutely.
Well, that's it. And we have had, there was a time when I used to go out and ask proactively for videos. I remember when who was it? I think it was Wizz Air actually, a few years ago, many years ago. This was back when before I was even doing the actual vlogs as they are now, when I was doing these full flight videos I used to do. I approached Wizz Air, and they said, we'll give you a free flight to Poland or something. I was like, great, okay. But then you sort of look into it and you're like, hang on a minute, their flights are like 10 quid each anyway. So what am I getting for this? I'm getting a 20 quid flight, but in exchange for that 20 quid flight, I'm then having to say only positive things about this airline. I'm obviously bound by certain contractual obligations with them as well. So you have to keep it up, and you have to say this about their airline, and they have certain phrases they want you to mention and stuff. And you're like, really? It's just 20 quid flight. I could just go and pay for that anyway. And you sort of get into that mindset that sometimes it might be free, but is it worth it? Probably not.
Yeah, true.
These some of these videos you've done, like the challenges, how do you sort of come up with those? Was it the one you could see how far you could fly in a day, taking the cheapest fare, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was a fun one. So that was, I ended up in Nepal on that one, and that was something. I have to be honest, I'm not very original, and I think I had a friend a few years ago who did that, and I think they ended up in India or something, and I was like, that's a really good idea. I should try that on my channel. And I'm not very original, so a lot of the ones I've sort of seen somebody else do and think, that's a really good idea. Let's put our own spin on it and try and do it our own way. The Around the World in 80 Hours one, that was one that we came up with because we did the 71 hours in economy, which that's a whole other story. But I thought, well, that did well. So 80 hours around the world we could try and do. And okay, it's nowhere near like a record-breaking time or anything like that, but it's still quite evocative, isn't it? And it's, people want to watch it because they want to see how you get on with it, and they want to stay watching it and see if you actually achieve it at the end. And that's sort of how we came up with that. And yeah, I don't know, they just sort of come up over time. Wizz Air, I did one where I spent 2 days flying just on Wizz Air planes for 2 days straight, and that was kind of a bit of an inside joke with me and my patrons, because we'd kind of got a thing that Wizz Air were terrible, and we always used to say, oh, you got to go and do a Wizz Air review because you spend too much time on Qatar Airways and stuff. You got to go and fly on Wizz Air or something. And I was like, yeah, go on then. I ended up just booking just spending 2 days on board Wizz Air A320s, which was yeah.
Yeah. That 80 hours thing, you must have been all over the place, sort of in your inner time zone. You mustn't have had a clue going on those.
You know what? Actually, that was quite an easy one because I just didn't change my time from British time. In my head, it was always UK time. It was only for like 3 days, so you can sort of just stick in one time zone. And that's what for the shorter trips. That's what I usually do. It depends on where you go. In like the African one I did, I was always within like 2 hours of UK time, so I just kept my head on UK time all the time, and I was either going to bed at 9 o'clock or going to bed at 11 o'clock. It was always within a little bit of time. It's the ones where you're sort of spending a bit of time in one time zone, then going to a wildly different time zone for another bit of time, and that's that they can be the hard ones, really.
Awesome. We'll jump into the chat. There's some quick fire questions. There's a lot of questions coming in, so we'll try and whiz through. No pun intended. The questions that are coming in. So quick fire. I know Matt Smith has been asking this question constantly, so we'll get this one out of the way. He says, "Come on, pineapple on pizza? Yes or no?"
Controversially, yes.
Always controversial.
Yeah.
It adds a little bit of sweetness to it, and it removes the kind of like dry pastriness from the pizza. So yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I probably lost half my audience now.
Again, it's night show, everybody. No, that's fine. Right, so that's that one. Bradley Penny Aviation says, when and how did it feel when your first video went viral?
Absolutely bloody petrifying. I hated it. And it was me 71 hours in economy video. I was not ready for it. It was a terrible video. It still is a terrible video. It's the worst one I've ever done. And yet somehow people watched it and sent it viral. And yeah, it was scary because suddenly you get the views and you're like, oh, that's pretty cool. But then the amount of comments that come in from people saying really nasty things about you sometimes, it kind of, when you're not prepared for that, it's bloody terrifying. So yeah, that's the.
I must admit that the comments are going crazy at the moment with your answer to pineapple on pizza.
Yay!
Well, she kept it. Cut him off. Oh dear, there's lots of people actually saying it's a good answer as well. So it's definitely dividing everybody, I think, at the moment. So you've done well there. So I think you've saved yourself.
Hey.
Let me see where I can get back to with the questions here. I believe there was one there saying, "Have you visited Honolulu?"
I have, but I didn't film it. We went on holiday there a few years ago, before I went full time actually, and we got a really cheap flight, and it was like. It was economy class all the way, but it was like connected in like 3 different places. So we flew to Paris, then we flew to Vancouver, and then we had about a 6-hour layover, and then we flew on WestJet over to Honolulu. So it turned into a 24-hour trip with 2 kids under 6 at the time. There were. It was not a fun trip, and yeah, we were there for about a week, so we barely got over the jet lag really. And then we flew back again. So we do want to go back at some point, but I think we've got to do it properly because it was just. Like just trying to rush it into a week's trip was just horrendous.
Yeah. No, that's fine. Jack Rolls is asking, what is your favourite airshow aircraft?
Oh, airshow aircraft. Are we talking like fighter jets and stuff like that?
I believe so. Yes.
Yeah, I like I'm trying to think what I like now. The old what are they called? The Bone, I think it's called. The American Air Force.
The B-1 Lancer.
B-1, yeah, that's the
the B-1 Lancer. Yeah,
good answer.
Yes, I'm not very good with military stuff, but yeah, that one. The noise that thing bloody makes when it goes up is just incredible, and yeah, I love it.
You have just saved yourself with that answer because that's what I would pick. So
Can I go back to the pizza question? The pineapple here. Now what it is, Noel, it's nothing to do with the pizza, but is there one specific type of food that you try and get in all these different destinations, and sort of like you're comparing loos? Is there not something you can do where you're comparing pineapple pizza in India compared to what it's like in Honolulu?
I suppose KFC is a good one, or McDonald's.
Yeah.
McDonald's is always good because you get to try all the local ones that they go. So in India, they do a McIndian burger, which is like a vegetarian burger. It's quite nice. And then, different places have different McDonald's burgers. So it's always good to go and see what they do.
Yeah. And everybody says that the chips always taste the same, do they?
They do, yeah, absolutely, yeah, and it doesn't change between McDonald's and KFC. There's the KFC chips here are the same as KFC chips in Uganda, I think, which was the last place I had them. Yeah.
There you go. Who knew?
Yeah, go to Uganda, get a KFC burger. That's your top tips.
Samuel Wright, A350 asks, have you ever flown an A340-600?
I have twice. Iberia, Madrid to Heathrow, and I did South African Airways as well. On I think Cape Town to Johannesburg. I flew on one with them as well. Very, very nice plane. Yeah.
Fantastic. Rob Brown, Plane Spotting, is asking, have you ever had a crew get really upset and refuse you filming?
Yes, many times. In Russia, funnily enough, a country famously known for its liberal laws about filming and stuff like that, I got stopped from filming on the Antonov 26, which I was bloody gutted about because I'd flown all the way to Kostroma, a little town out in the middle of nowhere in Russia, to fly on the last passenger An-26, and the flight attendant was not happy with me filming to the point that she actually came and sat next to me on the plane to make sure that I wasn't filming anything. Wow. So yeah, that was fun. But actually, that was one of those occasions where I was sitting on the plane thinking, this is just going to go terrible. It's just, this is an awful video. Let's just stop it. I'm really gutted I've flown all this way. I could have gone, I went into a massive sort of spiral with it. But then actually the video that came out of it, we made into something really funny because it was just a constant sort of, is she going to stop you filming or is she not? And it was turned into a really thing. And Olga, we christened her, became YouTube famous. So that'd be fun to go and redo that one, I guess, wouldn't
it? Wonderful. Right, Samuel Ryan, A350 again, is saying, can you talk about the 737-200 experience?
Yeah, it's amazing. So my first one I went on, and for years the only one, was a British Airways one back in like 96 or something, from Birmingham, and they did these little pleasure flights on them. And I wasn't particularly thinking it was a rare aircraft at that time because it wasn't back in 96. It was just a ride on a plane. But then I never got on one for years, and I eventually got to fly on one in Canada in September. It cost an absolute arm and a leg. I flew to this tiny little town in Quebec called Peverney-Took. It's got a gravel runway, which was interesting. That was a cool sort of like takeoff and landing, but it's just the most incredible experience. And the Canadian North, who I flew with, it's like a combi, so there's only like 8 rows of seats at the back of the plane. And then from there forward, it's all cargo. And the crew were just phenomenal. They let me pick a seat right next to the back of the engine where the bucket reversers go out, which was cool. The noise is phenomenal. I mean, we mentioned the B1 and that sort of rumbling feeling that you get in your chest when it takes off. It's like that when you take off on board that thing. It's incredible. And yeah, they let me, we did a technical stop somewhere, and they let me up into the cargo hold and had a look around there as well, and we're watching them offload it and stuff. It's just an all-round fantastic experience. It really is. It's just a shame that it's just so out of reach for so many people at the minute.
Yeah, that's a shame. There's a question here in the chat, and it's from somebody called, is it Debbie Howden? She says, ask Noel about his KFC painting and where he's hung it.
Yeah, okay, my KFC painting. Yeah, hi Debbie. She's a patron of mine, so hello Debbie. So when I was in Nepal, I had this idea that I was going to take a helicopter up to Everest Base Camp because it would just be cool, like, right? Everybody wants to go and like visit somewhere that they've only read about in books and stuff. And I thought, wouldn't it be funny if we did something really outlandish, like either take a Big Mac up Mount Everest or take a KFC? Well, clearly taking beef up a mountain in a country where it's kind of a sacred animal would be a bit of a bad move. So there was a KFC nearby, near the airport, and I bought a KFC and I a load of chicken nuggets, jumped on this helicopter, went up to Everest Base Camp, almost passed out when I'm trying to eat them at 17,000 feet because there's no oxygen up there. And yeah, that was all fun. And then we made this like daring escape down the mountain as the weather was closing in and stuff, and that was it really. And the video kind of tanked; nobody watched it until sort of last year when KFC got wind of it, and they invited me down to their head office, and they called me a KFC super fan, and interviewed me for a commercial and everything that they did, and then they presented me with an oil painting that they'd had commissioned of me flying to Mount Everest to eat KFC.
Wow.
Which was amazing, and it hangs in our downstairs loo. So whenever we get visitors, they're always like, "Why is there a painting of Noel?" Because you see, the painting's hilarious. I mean, I'll send a picture of it across to you in a bit. But they've painted me with my like jacket open and a 6-pack and everything. So like people go to our downstairs loo and they're always like really weirded out by it. They're like, "Why is there a picture of Noel with a 6-pack like in the downstairs toilet?"
I suppose it gives them something to look at while they're sat on your cushioned seat.
That's it. Yeah, exactly. So we don't have TVs. We don't have Emirates TVs, but we do have a nice KFC painting of me. So yeah.
An airliner's life were asking if you were given a card for free food for life for positive reviews of KFC, would you accept it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'll give a positive review anyway. They were talking about it, when I went down to do this thing with them at the head office, and they said they're talking about, how Nando's do this, like Nando's black card or something, and it basically influencers get this black card to like go and eat for free at Nando's whenever they want. And KFC were on about doing something similar. So I sort of put my name in. I said, if you do that, can any chance I can? So it's never come about, but we'll see. We can live in hope, can't we?
Yeah, amazing.
Awesome.
Talk about them enough and they might do it.
Some more quick fire questions for yourself. Julie Rotherham is asking, is there anywhere that you haven't been that you want to get to?
Yes, there is lots of places actually, but one of the ones that's really grating on me is North Korea. And I know a lot of people are like, well, North Korea, why do you want to go there? But aviation geeks will know the planes in North Korea are fantastic. IL-76s, IL-62s, Tu-134s, like all the really old stuff that even the Russians don't fly anymore. They're still flying in North Korea. And I was booked to go on an aviation tour there that was due to be going in like summer 2020. So obviously all the things happened that year that stopped that happening. And that was the closest it's ever got, and it's sort of not happened. I don't think it is going to happen anytime soon, very sadly. So that's the one that I'm kind of.
I think it takes a lot of planning, doesn't it?
It does, and the issue is as well, it's not just North Korea that's kind of have a say in this, it's the whole China situation, because clearly there's no way really of getting into North Korea without going through China, and if they're shut as well, you're kind of a bit stuffed, really, and that's sort of where we're at the minute. So yeah, it's a place that I really want to go to, and I sadly don't think I'm going to get there anytime soon, and maybe by the time I do, then they won't be flying these planes anymore. So yeah, I don't know.
Fair play. Right, Gail Leary, our mod, is asking a question. What airline have you not flown with yet? Would you like to blog?
This is an interesting one because there's so many that I could just say, I can just go and fly them. And I usually have the opposite issue where I'm struggling to find interesting airlines to fly with. But one that it's been on my list for so long is Turkmenistan Airlines of Turkmenistan, clearly. They used to fly into Birmingham with 757s, I think. And since COVID, they've sort of shut down all their international routes, but fingers crossed they open them again soon. But they would be a really fun one because they're very sort of apparently there's a framed photo of their president in the front of all the planes and stuff like that. So just things like that would just make it kind of a quirky little airline. And it's one of those countries that you wouldn't really get to visit. I don't think you can visit Turkmenistan. I don't think they let tourists in as such. So yeah, that would be one to try on a flight, possibly to India or somewhere like that. But I don't know. If they ever start flying internationally again, then definitely they're going to be on my list.
Yes, that's fine. Let's go for... I've just missed it there. Going from the other side of things, Julie Rotherham asking, rather than where would you want to go to, she's asking, one place you wouldn't set foot back in, even if they paid you.
Oh, this is really risky, Julie. You can't ask me this. I can't say this because then I'm going to. One of two things will happen: either I end up going back there and then look like an idiot, or I end up looking like an idiot anyway for saying something nasty. I don't know really whether I can say that I wouldn't set foot in anywhere that I've been to. I guess the dangerous ones. I mean, Burkina Faso was fun, but I don't know whether I'd want to go back there because it was really risky, and I ended up getting food poisoning there and stuff, and it was all a bit rough. So maybe somewhere like that, I don't know. But it's difficult to say, and I never say never. Even like I had a really rubbish time in India this time, but I know that I can go again and have a fantastic time. And every time you go somewhere, like the first time I went to India, I hated it, and I swore blind that I would never set foot back in India again because it was a really bad experience. But then after a couple of years, I was like, you know what, I should really go and actually explore India and see it properly. And it was a bit better. It was a bit easier. It was still quite difficult, but it was a bit easier than it was the time before because I was sort of prepared for it. And yeah, that's sort of how it goes really. So I think I may even end up back in India at some point.
Good. Yeah,
Yeah.
fair enough.
Never
Risky,
been
but
to
there you go.
Rule and
Fair
all
enough.
Yeah.
Let's have a look here. Paul Hussey on Facebook asking, has Noel flown the Yak 40?
Yes, I have, and it's an amazing plane to ride on. I flew with Motor Sich in Ukraine a few years ago. They were operating one, and then I flew pretty much a year ago today, actually, in Russia, and which we can't do now, clearly. But there's an airline that flies them between St. Petersburg and Moscow and a place called Vologda, which is like out in the middle of nowhere, and that was fun. Incredible aeroplane. Reverse thrusters coming on before you touch down. That's always fun, and it's like a little bit like, oh, really? And the climb rate of a dog, it's horrendous. Like you're taking off and skimming all the treetops as you're taking off. But yeah, the noise that thing makes is incredible. The experience of flying in places like that is amazing. It's got the whole kind of open luggage racks and things on top, and curtains at the windows and stuff, which make it fun. And you have to sort of load your own bags on as well on those, which is pretty fun because you board through the tail between the engines when experiencing itself, but you sort of go through the cargo hold on your way into the cabin, so you have to take your own bags on and then collect them yourself as you get off again at the end. So yeah, that was interesting. Yeah, it's an amazing plane, really is.
I say because
How much?
Motor Sich are they're a very unique airline, aren't they? Flying pretty much very very old Russian planes as well. I've seen multiple reviewers going across in like things like the old Antonov. I want to say 26s or something.
24s they've got.
Yeah, 24s. Yeah, and things like that, and like just very old planes. And I think is there an Ilyushin 114, I think, as well, like a turboprop, I think.
They don't. I think so. What I think they've got Antonov 24s, which they use all the time.
Yeah.
They have got an Antonov 26, which they occasionally use, and they've also got Antonov 72s with the engines on top of the wings, which they do use periodically for passenger work, but it's usually charters that they use them for.
Okay.
And I went to try and get on one of them. The thing is with Motor Sich, so I call it the Motor Sich lottery. You book a flight, you know whatever happens, you're going to win and end up on something incredibly cool. Some of them are a bit cooler than others, and yeah, I did. I think I went down there a few years back. The Antonov 72 was operating flights to Burgas in Romania. Sorry, not Romania, Bulgaria. It was operating flights there for a bit, and I was like, let's go see if we can get on one. And I ended up on an Antonov 140, which is still pretty cool, but it's always a gamble what you're going to get. And there was the same with the Yak 40 as well. They were sometimes they send Antonov 24s, sometimes they send Yak 40s. It's whatever you get, it's going to be something cool, and it's always worth a trip. And it's like 20 quid a flight as well over there. So it used to be when sadly things were a bit better in Ukraine, but it was like 20 quid or something to fly on like a 2-hour flight on an Antonov 24, and you're just like, really? When you can get to Kiev for like a tenner on Wizz Air or something, and then just fly on something like that to connect onwards, it's amazing.
Yeah, fantastic.
I was going to say, how keenly have you? Sorry, how keenly have you felt the loss of sort of Virgin and BA's 747s?
I miss them a lot. I never got on a Virgin one. I flew on the 747 on the BA ones 747s quite a bit. And yeah, that was just so nice. And I think it was such a shock when they went. That was my issue with it. There was no sort of phase, let's reduce them gradually and let's do, there's a chance to fly on them before they go. It was like they were here one day and literally disappeared the next. And that was sort of the saddest part about it for me, really. Especially seeing as I'd flown on quite a few in the year before as well. I went on the BOAC one, which was really nice. And that, sadly, is now sitting as a museum piece, isn't it? So, yeah.
It is. Rob Brown, plane spotting, DC-10 or TriStar?
I've flown on a DC-10. I haven't flown on a TriStar, but yeah, it's I like the looks of the TriStar over the DC-10, and it's the one aircraft I really wish that I'd got to ride on while it was still going. But yeah, I did go on a DC-10, which was pretty cool, and that was just an amazing experience. I can only imagine that the TriStar was just as much fun.
Wonderful. Last question, just for now, from Matt Smith. It's just come in. Which luxurious put my teeth in. Luxurious hotel have you been most happy to be at after a grueling trip?
Probably after my Greyhound trip that I did, and I booked the most lavish hotel I've ever stayed at in New York City, and I only did it because I had points to burn. And it was to pay for this hotel ordinarily was like hundreds of pounds a night, but I stayed at the Conrad Hotel in New York City. And I think it was retailing at about £800 a night. And I just happened to, and it's ridiculous. Like, who'd pay that for a hotel, especially in New York? But it was a nice hotel, and I'd got loads of points saved up because I'd spent a lot of time like in Mexico and stuff over the previous 12 months. And I was like, you know what? I'll just burn all my points on a nice night at the Conrad and used a load of miles or points or whatever you call them, and I had the best night's sleep in my life after I got off that Greyhound bus, and then I ended up in like the Conrad Hotel in New York. I was like, nice.
I think a Premier Inn would have been okay, to be quite honest, wouldn't it?
Very possibly, yeah. I like Premier Inns, I really do.
Yeah, they're good hotels.
If I'm in this country, I'll always stop in a Premier Inn because you know it's what you're going to get. You know.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. Have you ever travelled in a cockpit?
Yeah,
cockpit videos.
Yeah, the other week actually, I was down in Tanzania, and I flew with my friend Josh Cahill, who you may know, he's got a YouTube channel as well. That he happens to know the chief pilot for Air Tanzania, who got wind that we were going to be on their A220 and invited us up to the flight deck for the flight. Wow. So I flew, I did an hour and a half flight last week, or the other week, in the flight deck of the A220, which was pretty cool.
Yeah,
I did Sunairs as well, actually, on their 328 jet from Billund into London City. So that was really cool. Like flying into London City in the cockpit was just amazing.
I bet it was, yeah. Not many people can say they've done that.
No, exactly. And it's like, even they were like, the thing is, you can do it, and I know a lot of people were like, "How do you do that? It's against the law and against the rules and stuff." And it's not. The fact is, you've just got to have the authorization of the chief pilot to do that, which we did. With the Sunair one into London City, we had that because the chief pilot was the guy who'd had me over there filming with him all day, and he just put a word in and said, "Yeah, I'm going to fly in the flight deck." So it's very fortunate though to be in that position. It's really
pretty sweet that.
It is. Yeah, it's perks of the job and all that. But, yeah,
bit of a pinch yourself moment.
It really is, honestly, and like especially like, and that one into London City was probably the best one I've done because we flew in at night into London City and just seeing the whole city in front of you, and you're listening to the air traffic control in your headset, and just absolutely incredible experience. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I bet it was.
Yeah, fantastic, awesome. No, so shying away from, obviously, we've been speaking about sort of the shorter trips you've done and things like that. You were one of these lucky people to do London to Perth on Qantas, direct. I say lucky because I don't know how anyone would do it. What was that like, sort of sitting on a plane, sort of direct from London to Australia, on what is kind of like a historic sort of moment at that point of launching these direct flights?
It was pretty cool, actually, and obviously not many people had actually done it non-stop before, so I was a bit like, there's nobody to sort of guide you and say this is how you get through a 18 hour flight. But actually it wasn't too bad, and they've done their Dreamliners up really nice. Qantas have, even in economy, they've given you extra leg room and stuff like that, which is pretty cool. And the thing I found with it was just getting into your mindset, getting away from the whole let's just stare at how much flight time there was remaining on the flight. Let's just sit and watch some movies and chill, maybe sleep for a bit, maybe go for a walk up and down the flight. And it actually wasn't too bad, I have to say. And the feeling of getting off the plane in Australia and thinking, hang on a minute, I stepped onto this plane in London, I'm stepping off the same plane in Australia. It was the weirdest feeling. Obviously being the first one as well, it was just like not many people have ever done this before. And here I am just sort of casually just standing here in Australia. But then I sort of ruined it a bit because at the time I was still working a full-time job, and I went over a bank holiday weekend, so I didn't have to take any time off work. So I was like, right, how can I get? I'm gonna have to go straight back. So I either go straight back from Perth, or I do something really crazy and go across to Auckland and fly on the world's longest flight, as it was, from Auckland to Doha, which was like 18 hours or so, and do that all basically back to back. And that made that really crap video, which kind of launched the YouTube channel really as it is. But it was really tough. And I think the thing about that was all my trips before that had always been sort of quite local or just to the east coast of the States or something where you're relatively close. And suddenly you're standing in New Zealand on literally the opposite corner of the planet to my family. And I was like, stood there like, this is horrible. I'm like, as far as I can be away from everybody that I know and everybody I love, and this is all to make a YouTube video. Like what? And it was really difficult. But we did it, and the video, sort of without doing that trip, we wouldn't be where we are now. So yeah, that's good.
So I suppose the main question is, how did you manage to get yourself through a grueling sort of 15, 16-hour flight? Like, how did you keep yourself occupied, and was there any sort of special things you had to do on board to stop yourself getting, you have these stories about like blood clots and things like that. Like, did you have to have these little exercises sort of during the flight?
I'm terrible with my health on flights, and I was then as well, just as I am now. And I don't do anything like that. And I always get in my head, let's just deal with the pain now. It'll be all right when it's done, and we'll sort it out and feel better when it's all over and done with. And that's kind of how I do it. It's awful advice. On that flight, it was just basically alcohol and sleep. And there becomes a point where you have no choice but to sleep. Even in a cramped economy seat, you sat there like, I'm just going to sleep anyway because I'm that physically exhausted. And I slept on the Qatar Airways one. I slept from New Zealand until like 3 hours before we landed. I slept for like 10 hours or something on the flight. It was crazy because my body literally just gave up and said, you need to sleep. And that's what happens. Yeah.
Have you ever been on a flight and fallen asleep and then walk up and think, I should have filmed it, and you haven't done?
I haven't, but I have a recurring nightmare that happens, and I've literally, and it just sounds terrible. Like I woke up the other week after, and I had a nightmare. I'd flown on something like, I think I'd flown on like a 747-200 out of East Midlands Airport or something, and I'd woken up and we were like landing, and I was like, crap, I've not filmed any of this flight. What am I going to do? There's no video for this. But that's a dream. It's a bit sad, really, isn't it?
Not at all. Not at all. Is it something you'd be prepared to do again if you had the opportunity to do the non-stop sort of thing? And is Project Sunrise something you're potentially looking at in the future?
Oh, absolutely. But unfortunately, I'm going to have to say I don't do it in business class though, because I'm kind of getting old and I need my sleep now. So yeah, but I would definitely do it. In fact, in a few weeks' time, I'm doing the current longest flight from Singapore to New York on Singapore Airlines on their A350. So that's going to be a similar sort of length, I think, to these Project Sunrise ones, isn't it? Or is it a little bit shorter? I think, but yeah,
possibly a little bit shorter. I think. Yeah.
It's
good preparation regardless.
Yeah, exactly. And I am well up for it. I really want to do it. And again, it'll be a case of everybody else will end up doing it, and then I'll probably do it 6 months down the line when all the fuss has died down and nobody's interested anymore. But yeah.
Oh, sorry. I was going to ask. There's a question what's popped up a few times now. It's from, is it Mohammed Naritsa? And he's saying about visiting Indonesia.
I will be in Indonesia in about 3 weeks' time. I'm going to Bali and I'm going to Jakarta. So yeah. I'm flying on Malindo Air, who are like a Lion Air subsidiary, I think, like low-cost airline. Flying on them from Brisbane into Bali. And then I'm flying on an airline called Nam Air, who fly old 737 classics, like 300s and 500s. So that'll be fun. And I'm flying on them up to Jakarta and then Singapore out to New York. So yeah.
Fantastic.
That's a cracking trip.
Obviously, all to be filmed, of course.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to that one a lot. I've never been to Indonesia, so it's going to be a fun experience, if a brief one, but a bit briefer than I'd kind of hoped. But that kind of came about because I got a cheap fare from Indonesia to New York, and I was like, "Oh, we could do that, and we can make a video." So sadly, that meant my flight to Indonesia got cut short a bit. But yeah.
So when you're planning your flights, when you're planning your next video or whatever, do you think to yourself, well, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to do this, I want to go here? Or do you just Google cheap flights and think that looks cheap, I'll go there?
It depends really. So like this trip, what I tend to try and do is try and do each trip that I do a different continent, with the idea of covering sort of 4 continents a year. And obviously that's great for the channel as well because it kind of pulls in viewers from all around the world if you start to do that a little bit. And yeah, Southeast Asia is one that, for example, I can talk you through that one because that was one that I haven't been able to do because of COVID. Everywhere has been shut, and suddenly they're all sort of opening up over there. So I'm like, great, we can actually go and film over there now. Some airlines I'd kind of had in my head I wanted to try anyway. Lion Air, I wanted to fly. I wanted to do Mongolian Mayat Airlines. And I sort of eventually I ended up booking a flight. All I did was book a flight to Seoul with Mayat. And then I was like, where can I go from there? And I found an airline called Air Seoul, who sound like the most amazing name for an airline ever. So I'm flying on Air Seoul from there. We'll get plenty of mentions in the video, but I'm going on to Vietnam, and then I'm flying across Vietnam, and then just tacked on, and then I tack on another flight. So like Air New Guinea, I'm flying on to go through Papua New Guinea. That takes me to Australia, so I'm like, well, I might as well do some flying in Australia while I'm there. It just sort of adds on like a bit after a bit after a bit, and eventually I've got myself somewhere kind of heading home, and that's it's kind of like everybody dreams to do. It's what I used to dream to do, and you just sit there going, "Oh, I wonder what happened if I could like just book all these flights and book this flight and then book this flight and then book this flight, and I can kind of do that for real now." So yeah,
Jim Gemmell going, not as bad as Ancair and their logo.
Yeah, true.
It's like the old Thomas Cook one, isn't it? Is it Cook's Club or something?
Cook's Club, yeah. We won't mention what that's. That's quite an If you haven't seen that one, it's quite a thing.
I think it sounds like a glamorous job, but I bet it takes it out of you, doesn't it?
It can do, and there becomes a point like when I'm booking the flights, I'm always like, oh, we'll do this, then we'll do this, and then we'll do this, and it seems like it's going to be really easy, but then I have to remember I'm kind of getting on a bit now, and I'm not as young as I used to be, and you sort of fly on some of these, and it really does take it out of you, and I'm like, I wish I'd have just booked a day in here. So there's times when I'm on a trip where I'll just be saying, you know what, I'm not going to do this video. I'm just going to stick a day's rest in here instead, and just like catch up like later in the trip or something like that. And that's sort of how it ends up going a lot of the time. And just you just sort of have to chuck in rest days, and I end up staying in fancy hotels when I'm away, simply because I don't think I'd be able to get through it otherwise. I'd have, I spend like 2 days traveling on really crappy airlines, and then I'm like, I need a decent hotel just to try and rest and recover a little bit before I move on to the next lot,
Yeah.
In your videos, you always rate the business trip quite highly on Virgin Atlantic. What sets them apart, would you say?
We see, I like Virgin anyway, and just like I like BA, they're both really good airlines. And the thing I think for me, it's more of a nostalgic thing. So if I've been away on a really rubbishy trip for like 2 weeks, I suppose even when I went to Canada, I wouldn't call it a rubbishy trip, but I was away from home for 2 weeks, and just walking into the airport and seeing a British Airways plane or a Virgin Atlantic plane there, and stepping on that plane, and you know the cabin crew are there, and you're like, oh hi, yeah, you're right, and just like being British again, and just being home like the second you step onto that plane. But Virgin's A350, I mean, for a start, you cannot deny the A350 is just one bloody gorgeous aircraft when you look at it. It really is my favourite to look at, and to fly on as well. It's just an amazing plane, regardless of the airline. And Virgin have done a really good thing with their upper class on it as well, with the little suites down the side and stuff. It's really cool.
Wow. Yeah, no, so you can see you race them in the videos, that's for sure.
Yeah, definitely. They are good. And I think there's just something that to be said. And I know we mentioned earlier about how certain countries get very passionate about their airlines. And you can kind of see why, because it's home, isn't it? And it's like, you're flying on Air India and you might hate it, but an Indian person getting on that plane at the end of a trip might go, you know what, I'm home now. And this is, and it's the same for me with BA and Virgin, really. You step on that plane, you're home, and you're having steak and kidney pie for your tea or something, whatever it is that they've cooked up for you, and you're chatting about like Love Island or something with the cabin crew, and it's all like, you know what I mean? It just all feels like home. It's just nice.
Yeah, it's all very British, isn't it?
It is, yeah, it is, and I don't know, I like to travel, but I really love that experience of just getting home at the end. And when you can get home 9 hours earlier by stepping onto a British plane with a British crew, it's just amazing.
Yeah, fantastic. Wonderful. Right, last few questions before we begin to wrap up tonight's show. So do get them in as quickly as you can. A question from Geraldine Babb on Facebook, and I think we probably know what the answer to this is. Do you think you'll ever get tired of traveling everywhere?
Yeah, I do. I mean, let's be honest, what I do is going to have a shelf life on it, isn't it? I'm 41 now. I don't know whether in 10 years' time I'll still be flying on planes as I am now, but I just hope that what I do can sort of move me on to doing other things related. If I end up doing Sam Chewy style videos and just going and getting invited behind the scenes at airlines and stuff like that, if that's where this career takes me, so be it. But I don't know, it's open at the moment, but I know there's going to be a point when I've just had enough and I just want to rest. And I'm just really fortunate that I'm getting to do it now and enjoy what I'm doing, and we're getting paid for it, and hopefully we'll get to a point where I can start having ease back a little bit.
Obviously, rubbing people up the wrong way today. Welshie Kev says, first pineapple on pizza and now Love Island, defo cut him off.
I haven't watched it this year, actually. Kev, you'll have to let me know what it's like this year, what's happening. But
Bradley Penny Aviation asks, where do you want to see the Pilot Blogs channel go?
I want to do more with the pilot blogs because it's strange. Like the main channel, what is now, was my hobby, and now it's my job. I want to basically do more with the pilot blogs channel, I suppose, and take it further, fly on more aircraft around the world, and just basically show my journey and flying. It's a much more laid back thing. It's my hobby, and I show that as sort of a side thing, really, to what I really do. So it's not really something that I've thought about. I want it to be here and like attracting sponsors and hundreds of thousands of subscribers or anything like that. It's just a little sort of side thing where I can sort of lay back a little bit and talk more sort of candidly and be a bit more about talking about me rather than the experience of what I'm doing. So
Well, she cares. I'm bidding my Noel Phillips socks now.
I'll send them back. We can reuse them. It's all right.
Give them to someone else. Owen, UK Aviator, asks, would you experience the LAX helicopter experience at the airport?
I don't think I know. Is that the one where you fly over the top of the airport? I don't know.
Yeah, in a helicopter, taking pictures from like above.
Yeah, that'd be cool. I mean, I've done it, and I've done it on a plane before. So I flew over there a couple of times actually, because there's when you fly light aircraft around LA, there's a corridor that goes right over the top of LAX. And that's amazing fun. Like you're flying over at like 1,000 feet above LAX, and there's like 747s landing underneath you and stuff. It's amazing fun.
Wow,
So yeah, I've done it a couple of times on a plane, but it'd be nice to sit on like with the door open on a helicopter and get some really cool shots and stuff. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah. Have you ever fancied flying one? Have you ever fancied diversifying into helicopter flying?
I've flown one once. I did a trial lesson in one down at Sywell. I was really nervous because I kind of didn't really like helicopters that much and just worried about them crashing and stuff, and like just being really hard to fly. But you know what? I flew one down at Sywell and it was the most amazing experience. It's so fun. Even compared to flying a plane, it's just like you just touch the controls and it just does what you want it to do, and you can make it do really cool things and like swoop around the airfield and stuff. And he even showed me what it's like when they do an auto rotation. So when the engines fail on the helicopter, because that's always been my fear. It's like if the engine fails on a helicopter, what are you going to do? He's like, well, we'll simulate it. I'm like, what? And he goes, yeah, we'll do a practice auto rotation. And he literally just simulated cutting the engine, and the thing just glides down and just like lands like a plane like that. It's incredible. Like probably smoother doing that than it would be if we'd had landed normally. You know what I mean? It's incredible. Yeah. And that really has changed my mind. So yeah, I love helicopters. I don't think I could ever afford to fly them like instead of planes, but it would certainly be cool taking off and landing in your garden and stuff like that.
Wonderful. Jack Rolls, it's a question that obviously we ask a lot of people, and everyone's opinion always matters. What is your view on the new Condor livery?
Oh, let's not talk about that, please.
Good answer.
I've got to eat my dinner yet.
Talk about it.
It is vile. It's vile. I think we can all agree on that. But, yeah.
Good answer. Yeah, less time spent on it, the better.
Yeah.
A question from Airliners Live. A little bit more of a personal one. How did your kids find having a YouTube famous dad?
It's quite funny actually. So my son is in year 7, and he loves it because he goes to school and all the year 9s subscribe to me on YouTube. So like these older kids all walk past him and give him high fives as he's walking along, going, "Oh yeah, YouTube famous and everything." It's just like, what,
Brilliant.
really? And the kids in like my daughter's class at primary school all want my merch and stuff, and she's forever going in wearing my hat with my face on it. I'm like, it's like the weirdest thing ever. But like, it's weird though, isn't it? Because I'm just like, I don't want them to think that I'm making my daughter wear a hat with my face on it. It's a bit. But no, they quite like it actually. It's quite nice, and I don't know. It just feels weird though to me because I'm not. Like, I'm just a normal guy. I don't do anything particularly special, and then you get like kids at some school who like follow me on YouTube and stuff, and just forever going on about it. It's weird. Yeah.
Where's the most obscure place you've ever been recognised?
Lukla, I got recognised
Wow.
in the airport in Lukla. So yeah, that was interesting. I got recognised yesterday at Jeremy Clarkson's farm shop. That was fun. We went down. We called him. We were down there in the area anyway, and we're like, "Oh, let's go to Clarkson's farm shop and go and have a look around." And he wasn't there; he's away filming. But like 2 separate people came up to me for selfies while I was there. I was like, "This is just so weird." Like, they come here to see Jeremy Clarkson, and they've ended up like having a selfie with me instead. But like,
Wow.
it's weird. But yeah, that's always weird. But yeah, in terms of foreign like exotic places, Nepal and India, I've spotted in India as well. That was yeah.
It must be nice though. It's an endorsement that you're doing things well.
It is. It's nice. It's nice that people actually take the time to come and say hello as well. It's always like it's always quite humbling, really. And it, you see a lot of comments on YouTube and a lot of comments on Facebook, and it's easy to take. Like, some people say really nasty things, and it's easy to take that as kind of an indication of what you're doing. But then when you meet an actual person who comes up to you and is like, "Oh, you're right, mate. I love your videos. Can you have a selfie with you?" And it's just like, you're like quite humbled. And you're like, actually, this is the real people that are watching my videos, not these keyboard warriors sat somewhere in a dark room. These are the real people who like come and tell me how much they like what I'm doing and stuff. And it is lovely. It's really nice.
Yeah, it makes it all worthwhile.
Totally, absolutely.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
So someone's never come up to you and says, "Oh, you're that bloke off them videos. How you doing, Sam?"
Paul's the usual one, yeah. Yeah, Paul's the usual one. Everyone gets me and Paul Lucas mixed up all the time, but yeah.
Right, a couple more questions, 1 or 2, and then we'll start to wrap tonight's show up. So, second to last question from Matt Smith asking, which airline has the best livery in your opinion? Now, for those people that watch our show regularly, we do a rating show where we tend to rate liveries, whether it's special liveries, retro liveries, or normal liveries. So, for one night only and for one livery only, we're going to do a rating style type thing with NOEL. So, what is your what's the best livery in your opinion?
Currently, of planes that are still flying today, I have to say possibly the Royal Jordanians livery. Absolutely love it, with the black, like the total black, and then the gold writing and everything. It just looks amazing. It's a shame that it looks crap after it's been sat in the sun for a few years and it all starts fading and going a bit manky. But like when you first see them, it's just an amazing livery, really nice.
Fantastic. So out of 10, what would you rate it?
Probably, because of the fact that it does fade after time, probably about an 8.
An 8. Okay, interesting. Right, round the room, for those that know the Royal Jordanian livery, Steve.
I've seen it go into Heathrow on the A321 and the Dreamliner. I think it fits the Dreamliner slightly better, and I will agree with Noel on like a 7.58 for it.
Shout, Ian.
Yeah, I'd give it about a 7.5. Just like you say, with the all black and the gold lettering and things like that. I think it's got a bit of class about it, definitely.
Yeah,
give it an 8.
Solid 8 for me, I think. Just to look nice on any of the planes. Then you look at that particular livery that look on even like older aircraft like 727s and 747s, and even the TriStars just seems to fit it perfectly. So yeah, 8 out of 10, I think, for me.
Yeah.
So yeah, very nice indeed. Right, last question we'll get from Ian. Ian Hills says, great to see Noel online answering questions. That train journey in India was a nightmare. Will he do the joint video with Josh Cahill, as he mentioned earlier on the video?
I'm not going to do a joint video. I've just filmed 3 joint videos with Josh Cahill. So we've just travelled around Africa together and done 3 videos. So I won't spoil it as to what they are, because obviously it'd be nice for you guys to see it kind of fresh. But we travelled halfway around Africa together and did a bit of flying and mixing it up a bit, and we did like different cabins and stuff on different planes and things. And yeah, so we've got 3 in the can, so they'll be coming out in the next sort of few weeks, hopefully. So
Wonderful. Yeah.
What's the weirdest thing that's ever been put in front of you on a plane, meal wise?
Meal-wise, Scat Airlines, this is an easy one. They gave me, I can't remember what it was. It was something with a slice of cheese. It was like a processed slice of cheese on top of like some pasta or something like that. It was horrendous. And a bag of crisps that said "boom" on them. Just going back to our boom comment from earlier, is that really what you're doing on a plane? Like, yeah. So that's the weirdest. That's like the weirdest concoction that I think I've been served on a plane. Yeah.
Oh God, imagine that.
Oh, that's crazy. All right. Lastly, then, if that was sort of the weirdest thing for you, what's the worst sort of meal that you've had?
The worst.
Like, what sticks out in your head and it's like, I can't believe they served me that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, I think Uzbekistan Airways had a good one. That was just cold chicken, like dried cold chicken on a plate, and then your pudding was like an apple that was just like put on a plate in front. Like, great. Okay. That was pretty terrible, really. But I don't know. It's like there's certain foods you get given, and you're like, I sort of have to try that, and then it tastes disgusting, and then you don't. And that's kind of it. I think B-Man had an interesting one when they gave me some food, but I did realise I did it wrong, and they gave me this really spicy, like little sauce to eat, and they're like, "Oh, she thought I'd got a cold." This is pre-COVID, obviously, but she thought I'd got a cold, and she's like, "Here, have this. This will clear up your nose and your throat and everything." I was like, "Oh, brilliant, okay." And it was like the spiciest thing ever, and I just had like 2 tablespoons of it. I said, "Oh, it's like the spiciest thing ever." Then everyone's like, "No, you're supposed to like mix it in with your rice and just have like a little tiny bit." I was like, "Give me my head off then." So yeah.
Oh no!
I'm not very cultured when it comes to food, and you sort of realise that when you see the videos.
Oh dear! Right, that will bring a close to tonight's show. As I know, there's going to be so much more to talk about. So I'm sure at one stage or another we'll get Noel back on. I'm sure.
Absolutely.
If you're up for that.
Yeah, totally. It's been good fun. I enjoyed it. And
Awesome.
nice, interesting questions as well, which is great because
Very
the same questions all the time, and it's been very good.
Yeah, some very, very interesting questions there. So it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Lots of people have enjoyed the episode. But do not go anywhere because we'll be doing some shout outs now. So part of the show where we shout out people nearest and dearest to us, family, friends, loved ones, etc. And if you guys have any shout outs yourselves, do put them into the chat and we'll show them as we do ours. So let's go with Noel first. Noel, if you'd like to give some shout outs to the people, again, list can be as much as many as you like. Go for it.
Well, I think, I'm going to be really soppy here, and I'm going to have to say thank you to my wife, Rach, because without her, I probably wouldn't be doing this now. The support that she's given me over the years has been absolutely fantastic. And obviously, whenever I'm away, like filming and stuff like that, she has to run the house and look after the kids and also helping run the business as well, which is like a lot of work as well, as you can imagine. And then also to her mum and dad, because they end up doing a lot as well for us. So my mum ends up sending out all the merchandise and stuff that we sell and dealing with our Patreons. And her dad sort of looks after all the finances and makes sure that we kind of pay all of our bills and stuff like that. So so thank you to everybody really in the family. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you to you guys for having me on. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's been brilliant.
Thank you indeed. Right, Ian, over to you for some shout outs.
Just massive shout out to yourself and Steve, Tom. A massive shout out for Noel for coming on tonight. It's been really, really good, really interesting. And a massive shout out to everybody in the chat tonight who's just been asking all these interesting questions and having a lot of fun with us, to be quite honest. It's been great. Really enjoyed it. And a big shout out to my daughter, Teen, because I have to include her. She's funny, she sat in the next room watching Love Island, Noel, if you want to review.
Oh, brilliant. Tell me what's going on. I've not been watching it this year.
See what's happening in Love Island. No response.
No response, yeah. No, that's fine. No problem. Right, Steve, over to you if you'd like to do some shout outs.
Tom and Ian, as ever, it's always a pleasure being on here with you. Noel, unbelievable. Thank you for giving up the time to come on and talk to you and producing such good sort of entertaining videos and that. Everyone in the chat, particularly Airline is Live, another good stream today. So thanks for that, boys. And just everyone who's tuned in to join us. It's very much appreciated and doesn't go unnoticed.
Definitely.
Absolutely. I'll give a quick few shout outs. So, firstly, Marco Barrett, who is having his last night down here in the wonderful south and west. Hopefully he's probably not watching because the signal down his pants, but I'm sure he'll catch up and probably hear this anyway. So big shout out to him. Met up with him yesterday for the first time as well. So it was great meeting him. Shout out to, of course, Noel for again taking the time out of what will end up being a very busy schedule to do the show with us tonight. So massively appreciated. And of course, like I said, you're welcome back on at any point.
Thank you very much.
Airliners Live, big thank you very much to you guys. And lots of people going bing bongs. That's what they do on their stream. Thank you so much for the super chat. Fantastic show, guys. Loved it. Thank you so much for that. Also want to give shout outs to who I mentioned already. No. Marco, Steve and Ian for, of course, making the show what it is. Without you guys, couldn't probably do it on my own. So yeah, big shout out to you guys. And lastly, everybody in the chat and everybody that's been watching tonight. So yeah, and of course, big shout out to the mods as well, who have done their best despite some silly comments that I've seen come up. But they've done really well to keep it all under wraps and that. So very well done to them. Right. That will be us for this evening. No, don't go anywhere. We'll have a quick chat afterwards from the show. But we're going to say our goodbyes and we'll be back on next week. By the way, thank you to everybody who has subscribed for the first time today as well. We've gone over the 1,200 subs mark. So up and onwards from there. So thank you so much to those. Thank you everybody who's liked the stream as well, of course, and of course donated as well via super chats. So we're going to say our goodbyes. So Noel, if you'd like to say, actually no, we won't do you. We'll do Ian first. Ian, if you'd like to say goodbye to everybody that is on the stream still.
Yep. So yeah, just goodbye everyone. Thanks for tuning in tonight. It's been an absolutely fantastic show, and we'll see you all again next week with whatever we're doing next week.
Nice one. See you next week. All right, Noel, if you'd like to say goodbye to those that are still watching.
Yeah, well, thanks very much for watching. Really appreciate it. I enjoyed answering all your questions. And as I will say in my videos, thanks ever so much for watching. Take care, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.
It's like I do that, but I haven't got that from him. I did it on my own thing. That's fine. It's strange. Right, Steve, in the most Steve way possible, if you'd like to say goodbye to those still watching.
All right. Cheerio, my lovelies. Stay safe. Stay sexy, and until next time, give me a cheeky follow at Steve_Planes on Instagram. All right, cheerio. No,
bugger, I forgot to do that, didn't I? Crap. There you go. Follow Steve on Instagram, and we mentioned it as well. I mentioned the socials. Follow Steve on Instagram if you wish to do so. I read the message and completely forgot to do it.
Never mind.
Yeah, follow him on there. Ian's also on there as well. You can follow him on there too. Can't believe I forgot that, honestly. Anyway, see you next week, Steve.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Cheerio, mate.
Wonderful. And of course, big thank you everybody that's been watching tonight. We will see you next week, 7:30 p.m. For another episode of the show, episode 68. But should be a lot of fun. Next week, special announcement for the following week's guest. You might want to stick around for that. It's going to be quite a big one. But for now, enjoy your week. Don't work too hard. Stay safe. Take care of yourselves. And we'll see you next week. Bye!